It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. I want to thank both of our guests today. We have Vicky Edwards and we have Terry Hobbs. Terry Hobbs, you might recall, is the father of little Stevie Branch from the West Memphis 3 tragedy that we had back in the 90s. Now, Vicky and Terry have gotten together. They've written a book called Box Full of Nightmares. And this is a story of Terry's nightmare experience of losing his little stepson that he loved. After that, his marriage, went to hell. Almost every marriage you have where you lose a child ends in divorce and ends in tragedy. Then after that, the tragedy of being stalked and harassed by these crazy West Memphis 3 killers, these confessed killers. Their supporters have been terrorizing and torturing Terry for years and years and years. So we're going to be getting to this whole story today. We have Vicky Edwards, the author of the book, and Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of little Stevie Branch. So let's start with Vicky Edwards. Are you there?
Yes.
Vicky, can you tell us about yourself? Who is Vicky Edwards?
Well, other than Terry's first cousin, I was just a lot younger. I won't say a lot. I was several years younger than the older group of cousins. So I've known Terry for a long time, and we weren't so much keeping in touch through the years. But I was a young married mother when this tragedy happened. And it really changed the way I raised my own kids as far as letting them out of my sight or where they were allowed to go. And through the years, as things started happening in this, and I majored in writing in college and have a degree in creative writing, I approached Terry and asked him, could I write your story? And that pretty much sums up who I am in relation to Terry and this story and why I have an interest in it.
Well, I want to thank you for that because it's about time that Terry's story got out there. So thank you so much. Now, you're going to be promoting the book in Arts in the Park on May 1st in Hot Springs, Arkansas?
Yes, I'm hosting a workshop for the Arts in the Park. It'll be on May 1st at 6 p.m.
And people can find out more about this book at terryhobbs.com. Or is that Terry Hobb with with an S, right? Terry Hobbs. So, Terry, how about you?
Yes, all one word.
Terry Hobbs, are you there?
I'm here. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. And Terry, Terry was our first guest on the first Opperman Report that I ever had about 5 years ago when we did our first show about this topic. So thank you so much and welcome back to the show, Terry Hobbs. Tell us about yourself, Terry. Who is Terry Hobbs?
Well, I'm just, at the time all this happened, I was just a dad and a working man. I was working for my dad in a restaurant, which he had a chain of restaurants that he started. And this location was a couple miles north of Blytheville, Arkansas. And it was a franchise owner, again, restaurant. At the time, I had a family they were the Hicks family, and that's how I met Pam. She come to work for me as a waitress, and one thing led to another, and there was a few sparks that flew, and we ended up getting married, and Pam had a little boy named Stevie.
Oh, wait, I always thought that Stevie was your stepson.
He was my stepson. Oh, yes, sir, he was.
Okay, so then, so Pam already had Stevie when you met her.
Correct. He was about a year and a half old when we married.
Year and a half old. Okay, and then how old? He was 8 years old when he was murdered.
Correct.
So I guess meeting Stevie at a year and a half, it had to be like your own son, right?
For sure. Over time, you form a bond with any child if you're any type of human. You'll form a bond with these kids, and you want them to have the best, and you raise them as your own, and you create for them a life that they couldn't have or didn't have at the time.
And you and Pam also had some of your own kids together as well, right?
We had one daughter named Amanda.
Mm. Now, what made you decide to finally write a book?
Well, over the years, I've, as everybody has seen, I have done interviews with local and national media and newspapers, and every time I do one or have done one, they've always taken what I say and they use the editing and to edit to make you look like, something that you're not. Mm-hmm. And I have done this so many times that it just, it made me sick. So I quit talking to the media and I decided to start a journal. And in my journals, I knew that if I write it down, it's in writing. And I knew that hopefully one day that someone would pick it up and, hopefully put it in a book. And as my cousin Vicky has already said, she approached me and asked me to write my story. I kind of hesitated before I said yes, because I didn't know. And, as time went on, and this is what we agreed to.
And Vicky, who came up with the title Box Full of Nightmares?
The publisher.
Okay.
We probably went through 100 brainstorming ideas, and then when he had that one, it just kind of clicked.
And you two aren't local, right? You don't live in the same town, so you did all this long distance?
We did.
Terry visited here quite a bit, but yeah.
And what was the process like? What'd you do? Just chat on the phone and talk about all this? Because I'm sure you were familiar with the story already.
We did. Well, I would go visit Vicky in Hot Springs, and we would talk, and there was times that we talked over the phone, and done through Facebook and messengers, and we've done a lot of communicating over the years.
Fax machine, email.
Still using faxes, huh?
We did. When we first started, we were faxing stuff back and forth.
Now, what about, everybody's happy with the results now, but were there any hard times, any friction between the two of you trying to get a project together off the ground?
No.
A little bit.
Really?
I mean, we didn't have a fight or anything, but there were times where, I pushed for things and he was like, no, I don't want that. And I keep pushing. But we were able to come to agreements. We didn't have any knockdown, dry outs, quit speaking to one another or anything. Just normal friction you have when you're working with somebody and one person's got one idea and the other person has a little bit different idea.
So now, a lot of people who follow this story, which has taken the name the West Memphis Three, most people who follow this story, they've become obsessed with the minutia and the details of the criminal case, of the crimes, and debating over the guilt or the innocence. Would we find any of that in this book?
I don't know. What do you think, Terry?
I didn't catch that whole question.
Yeah, Terry, I was saying that to most people who follow this story known as the West Memphis Three, it's become larger than the murder of your son. It's become this debate over the guilt or the innocence of the murderers. And they obsess on the minutia. They get into the details. They want to memorize every detail of the case and debate back and forth forever. Will we find any of that kind of type of details, any kind of content in the book, like that kind of content, discussing the guilt or innocence of the case?
No, I don't think so, because I think the case is what it is. I'm telling the story of a man who's been attacked over and over for years, and I'm also telling the story of a man whose determination not to let diversity, break his spirit.
Okay.
And I believe the case is what it is. I think it'll never change.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, when you were raising little Stevie, what did you guys do together?
Oh, we did everything under the sun. We'd go camping, boating, swimming, just anything that you can think of, we would do it. And we had fun doing it.
Was he always a well-behaved kid, mischievous? What kind of kid was he?
Sure, he was a good little boy. I don't have nothing bad to say about him. Never did.
Okay, great. Now, was he always allowed to just, the kids back in those days, they just played out in the street on their bikes all day long without Any concern?
Well, right, yeah.
Yes.
Just let them be kids.
Yeah, that's the way I grew up too, and it's a shame because my daughter now, she's 18 years old. But the kids today, especially, 10, 15 years ago, parents were hovering over their kids. But today, even more, it's like every little play date is planned with these kids, and it has to be like a structured little league or something. It's not like it was when we were little kids out there just out all day long, just adventuring. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, right. We used to go out and play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole different thing. Remember the kids were just knocking on the door and say, "Hey, can Eddie come out and play?" And now it's just is a whole, you got to vet everybody, So can you tell us what happened that day, Terry?
The day of May the 5th.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I get up and go to work just like a normal day. And, I come home and Stevie's not home. And I asked Pam, I said, "Where's Stevie at?" And she said, "He's gone off playing with Michael Moore riding bicycles." So, that was no concern. And other than he wasn't at home. And, most days he was at home. Well, he just got his bicycle from his granddad a few days before this, and he was just wanting to go ride his bike. So while I'm at work, Pam okayed him to go ride his bike, and he never came home. And that's what was sad. Never came home, just going off riding a bike.
And today he would be about 40 years old, I'm guessing, right?
Well, 26 and 8, 34.
34 years old. Yeah, so all that lost. Now, what about this area, Robin Hood Hills, where the little children were found, discovered? Was he known to play in that area before?
Well, we'd never heard of that area until that day. And, folks kept telling us, we seen him go into Robin Hood. We didn't know what Robin Hood was, but we found out.
So did you, any kind of indication that he played there before?
No, not that we knew of.
And how about the other boys? Any indication that they played there before?
I'm not sure. I know it was maybe a couple miles from our house. We just didn't allow them to ride off into the sunset like that. We wanted them to stay where we could see them. And I guess this day they just rode off.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when I was 8 years old, I lived in the Bronx. And wasn't a safe neighborhood, I'll tell you that. But we would get on our bikes and ride, quite a distance away from our home at 8, 9, 10 years old. But it was, like I said, again, it was a different time, different place.
Right.
Now, what happened? When did you get so nervous that you called the police?
Well, the closer to dark it started getting, the more concerns you got. Because, when dark sets in, it just makes it a little bit more hard to be out searching. And, we didn't know we were searching. We just was out looking for our kids, We just didn't know what to think or what to do. We just did what we did, being parents.
Yeah, like you didn't have like a terrified feeling that perhaps this was a tragedy in the making?
Well, closer to dark, your mind starts wondering, something just didn't seem right, because they wasn't like them boys just to go off and you never see them.
Yeah. And a parent's worst nightmare, Yes,
sir.
And how did you ultimately find out?
Well, this started on May the 5th, and it went all through the night, and then on May the 6th, we was at a school, and someone said they found some boys.
Oh, no.
And told us the location, and we went to where everybody was at, and that's where we run across the crime scene tape, detectives, police, people. That's how we first found out about it.
Now, that night of May the 5th, were you and Pam up all night?
All night long.
Yeah, I could imagine. Now, how was Pam taking all this? She must have been hysterical.
Well, she was. She was scared, just like I was scared. The later it got, all through the night, you just didn't know what to think. And we didn't. We didn't know what to think. We just did what we did. We were parents looking for our children.
Right. Now, I tell you, when the reality sunk in, okay, that the poor little boy was lost, how did you guys cope with it? Did you go get counseling or anything like that?
Well, we had counselors. We've tried counseling. We tried some of their medications. And, and we just wasn't into the medication part. And some of the counseling we went to turned out all wrong. And, there's too many emotions and too much shock to just jump in right then and do counseling.
Well, how come the counseling was wrong? What do you mean?
Well, we actually woke a counselor up one time. He wanted us to talk to him, so while we was talking to him, he just took a nap.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
So we just decided, if this is how they act, we ain't got time for that.
Yeah, I tell you, I had good experience with therapy and counseling and psychiatrists and stuff back in New York City. But ever since I've moved and I've left in different parts of the country, I've been very disappointed as well. I just with my daughter, with our divorce and stuff like that, every therapist has just been a hack who's just out for make things worse, actually.
Right, they're out for a paycheck.
Yeah. Now, did this cause problems in your marriage with Pam?
Oh, it did. There was problem after problem, and sometimes the problems that we were dealing with wasn't even a problem.
Mm.
There was just so much confusion, so much, the mind running away with itself that, sometimes it gets out of control.
Now, you mentioned you guys tried medication from the doctors, but what about self-medicating, alcohol, marijuana, drugs?
Well, we tried all that too.
Yeah.
And it don't work.
Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of makes
I believe if you want to face a problem, you face it, you deal with it. And you can deal with it however you want to, how long you want to. But don't forget, there's a chance and a time that you can move on to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Now, when the police came to you and they made their arrest, were you convinced that the police were on the right track and did a good job?
Well, I had no reason.
When that movie came out, okay, when the HBO and the Berlinger and came to town, what did you think of that? Were you cooperating with them at first? Did you think that they were on the up and up?
At first, we didn't want them around.
Okay.
So, we didn't know what their intentions was. But, so things happened, and they weaseled their way into the families' lives, into the courtroom. And, and the outcome of this has been somewhat devastating to the families.
Yeah, because if there had not been that reality type TV show, we didn't know about reality TV back in those days. We used to call it a documentary. We thought it was like a legit documentary. But if it hadn't been for that TV show, none of this nightmare would have happened for you. The rest of the nightmare.
It probably so, but you remember something. The name of their company was Creative Thinking. That was the name of Joe and Bruce's company. So what they've done, they lived up to their name, and they've caused a lot of heartaches for a lot of people.
Now, you hear these stories about, especially with buyers, like they would bring marijuana to buyers or buy marijuana from buyers and try and get them drunk and get them out there and acting crazy. Did you have any experiences like that yourself?
No, sir.
No,
I didn't play like that. And Mark, to me, when he did that, and we knew about it, and he was doing it for the money.
Now, because Bruce and they were offering Joe, yeah, they were offering people money.
Oh yeah, yes, sir.
How much?
Well, I made 7,500 at the beginning, and then each time they done something with somebody out of contract, there was more money involved. But I think they first came in at 7,500.
Really?
For family. Huh?
Really? Now, that's interesting. How did they get that much funding on this obscure case? It wasn't a nationwide case at that time. How did they get that much money to pay out? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but they paid out some money.
That's fascinating. I wasn't aware of that. Okay, that's interesting. Let's take a little commercial break here. We're with author Vicky Edwards, author of the book Box Full of Nightmares, and we're with Terry Hobbs, father of little Stevie Branch. Vicky, when did you first hear about the murder of little Stevie?
Well, probably the day after it happened. My uncle, Terry's dad, called our family and let us know. And from there, we didn't have television then, but from there we were really following closely on newspaper. You have to remember when this happened and all this media that got put with it, the internet was just becoming widespread, and very likely without the internet, this case never would have blossomed like it did.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember following the case on Usenet, on Alt West Memphis 3, way back in the 90s, yeah. Now, how about you? Now, when you saw the first film came out, did that affect your opinions about the case?
Well, when I watched the first Paradise Lost, I really believed that the three teenagers, I wasn't so far from being a teenager myself.
Right.
I really thought, that there's no way three teenagers did this. But then, of course, every documentary focused on somebody else, and it just became down to the fact that by the time Callahan got all the documents on the internet, right, where you could go study for yourself and then come to your own conclusion outside of the documentaries and what they cut and paste and realigned. And
now, how about you, Terry? How did that first documentary change your life?
It didn't, because I sat through the documentary, and I just, I used to think like you thought when you said a while ago a documentary used to be a true story.
Yeah.
And when I seen this documentary, I'm just thinking this is not what we all sit here and see. And so evidently, that was the line to, documentaries have changed, and they fabricate and they bring in all the accusations and allegations that they want, and it's okay.
Now, what about when they started making like the second one and they started focusing on buyers, that maybe buyers did it and all this kind of stuff like that? Did that raise any suspicions? Did you think, hey, maybe buyers did this?
No, sir. Because the night of May the 5th, well, I understand, but the night of May the 5th, when we as the parents were doing a lot of searching, well, Mark and his wife was out there with us.
Right.
And so we all knew where everybody was most of the time.
Gotcha. Yes, it's so true. When you're behind the scenes, when you're really involved in a story or a case in real life, and then you see what they put on TV or what makes the news, it's sometimes it's just night and day. It's just not even close. And if they have an agenda, they could really, really screw with things. Now, what about...
and they do.
Yeah. Well, especially in this case. This became a boondoggle for these guys to make money. Now, did you become establish any kind of relationship with the other parents, a bond between the three of you?
We did. I believe we did at first. We was all drug into something that we didn't know nothing about. And, you formed some form of bond with them.
And during the trial and stuff like that, did you stay in contact with each other? Did you?
We did. We kind of leaned on each other's shoulders when we needed it, and we did. We formed a bond with them.
Now, what about after the consecutive documentaries came out and they were pointing the finger at different people? How about then? Was there that still bond maintained?
No, I lost a lot of respect for Mark.
Hmm.
You know, he jumped out there and did what he did. You know, and if the truth be known, it's probably just for money.
Yeah.
But, you know, Mark has lost a lot of respect for lots of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how about when did the trouble start in your marriage with Pam?
May the 5th, 1993.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Do you think?
I couldn't believe, none of us could believe, you know, what we were drug into, you know, and it created a lot of problems.
How do you think your life would be different if these three young men didn't murder your son?
Well, we would have got to watch our kids go through, you know, elementary school, middle school, high school, you know, enter the workforce, enter college, you know, become somebody that we never got a chance to see.
Yeah. And do you think you and Pam would have stayed together?
Well, I would have hoped so. You know, you can't speculate on something, but, you know, we were doing good up until then.
And I know your and Pam's divorce and the custody stuff, that took a lot out of you too as well, right?
It did. It did, but, you know, you move on, you learn how to live, adjust, and you keep on trucking. That's my philosophy.
And how is your relationship with your daughter today?
Well, she actually lives with me today.
She lives with you now? Okay. Yeah. I got full custody of my daughter too. You probably watched, because me and Terry have become friends on Facebook and stuff like that. He's been on several shows. So you've probably seen my struggle too, but I have full custody of my daughter now too. She's 18 years old. As we all grow old together, right? Right, Terry?
Right.
Yeah. Now, what is the story with Pam's sister, Jocelyn, and her
Jolene,
yeah, Jolene, and her intense hatred of you? What is going on with that?
Well, Jolene, you know, she's mad because of what happened with her brother. She blamed me for that ever since it happened. And, you know, she's one-sided. It's her side of anything. And, you know, she just doesn't reason.
I'm not aware of what happened with her brother. What happened with her brother?
Oh, there was an altercation in Memphis here when we moved to Memphis. And, you know, me and Pam wobble, and she called her family down, and, you know, and he was...
You didn't have to read the book here.
Yeah, some of this is in the book, Ed.
Wait, the book's not even out, not even at the publisher yet. It's not even available for sale yet.
I know. I've been trying to kind of narrate here, you know, and yeah, but so this is in the book.
No, I definitely plan to purchase the book. Definitely, and I know that my listeners purchase books as well. So that you had a little fist fight with Jolene's husband because you and Pam were having a little problem.
Jolene's brother.
Jolene's brother. Okay.
Yeah.
And she's still mad about that.
Yes, Ed, it's in the book, and you know I don't want to tell this story over here, but it's in there.
No, I got you. But trust me, people will want to buy the book if you tell them what's in it. They'll still want to get the book.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
here's a highlight, you know, that might help.
Okay.
There was a gunshot.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. So you got to buy the book for that. There was a gunshot, and you were, and Terry Hobbs wasn't shot. You don't have any gunshot wounds, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you were on the handle of that gunshot, you might say, right?
There you go.
Now, what about all that, Terry? You hear about this stuff. Terry Hobbs is a violent man. He's a dangerous man. All these arrests and convictions. You want to go over any of that? You don't strike me as a dangerous fellow.
Well, I'm not, and I'm not a threat to anybody. You know, all these people that say that just don't know me. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a loving, hardworking man, 60-year-old, and still working 6 days a week. taking care of my responsibilities.
But you do have a couple of arrests in your background.
Well, not bad ones.
What is? You want to talk about it?
Huh?
Do you want to talk about it?
No, I ain't done nothing to nobody. I just got here and go to work. A lot of my problems.
I think there's 2 in the book, so.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of my problems have come from this May the 5th, the family, the Hicks family.
Right. Okay, yeah. And just to be, my audience knows I have my own brush with the law, my own unfortunate brushes with the law. I've described it several times. So it's, 10 million people a year get arrested in this country. Okay, so you pretty much, everybody takes their turn in the jackpot there, sooner or later. Now, okay, when did the focus, because originally the focus was on, well, buyers had to do it, and then all kinds of crazy stuff, Mr. Bojangles, just every kind of crazy, anybody in the world could have done this. But when did the focus first turn to Terry Hobbs?
In 2007.
2007. And there was a book by Mara Leverett that actually focused on buyers. But then when they made a movie about that book, they changed it. They changed the story to focus on Terry Hobbs. What do you make of that?
Well, if you give them enough time, they'll probably change the next story and come up with a new suspect. That's just how they've been doing it. It don't make sense.
Hey, are you aware?
I think the movie was following Mara's book until the DNA, and then at that point they decided that what Mara had said was not as relevant or maybe as newsworthy or film-worthy.
Hey, are you guys aware of my interview that we did with the owner of the storage locker of all of Damien Eccles' books and material that we got a hold of?
Right. I've heard about it, read about it.
Yeah, and did you know?
I didn't know. I went and got a lot of that stuff, though.
Did you know that Mara Leverett sent Damien Eccles a pre-copy before publication of that book so that he could go through it and recommend any changes?
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
That's just how they work.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we actually, the gentleman who bought the storage locker has a copy of the manuscript with those notes on it and with a cover letter to that effect. So people should be aware of that. Terry, now, one time you tried to file a lawsuit against the Dixie Chicks?
I did.
What inspired you to do that?
Well, there was enough haters going around hating on me and calling me all kinds of names. They brought in high profilers and, investigators, and then they, went after celebrities. And they had Johnny Depp, they had Eddie Vescar, and they had Natalie Maines of the Dixie Chicks. Well, they started posting on their website, things about me. And that kind of, there was some attorneys contacted me and said, let me do this. And I said, well, do it. And as they pushed forward, this is what happened.
Now, you mentioned the profilers. You had a little incident there with John Douglas where he pulled up with some guys in SUVs and they picked you up.
No, that wasn't me. Now, he did that to David Jacoby.
Oh, okay.
David, right, he was a friend of mine, and they intimidated that man so bad.
And when he was picked up, he thought he was being picked up by police.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And ultimately, I guess it was Jacoby who gave a statement claiming that there's a story out there that somehow you were involved in homosexual activity out in the woods and the kids saw you. What do you want to tell us about that?
And I've heard everything you could imagine. I've heard that, and I've heard other stuff too that's just, blowed my mind. But no, we don't engage in stuff like that, and we wasn't out in the woods, and never heard of the woods till May the 5th, and
right. And
we just didn't grow up like that.
In your whole life, has there ever been an allegation of homosexuality against Terry Hobbs?
No.
And any former lovers come forward, Terry, come forward and say, Terry was my lover, and me and Terry went to the disco together. Enough of that.
No, but hey, check this out. There was an article come out in the commercial appeal newspapers one time, and where I frequently visited a gay bar in Memphis called J-Wags.
Okay.
And yeah, they actually put this in the paper, and everybody that got it, they just get a hold of me and laugh and say, J-Wags, huh? I never even heard of J-Wags until then.
What can you tell us about, there's a gentleman, again, who is on Facebook, has a secret private group called Friends of the West Memphis 3, Friends. And they're proud to be friends with these men who confessed to these murders and bragged about doing these murders and joked about wanting to do these murders, and then pled guilty to these murders. But they're proud to be friends with them. And he's a dentist, and he has an obsession with a dental prosthetic that you left behind. What can you tell us about that whole story there?
I'm trying to think of his name.
I think it's Coward.
Mark Coward?
Yes, I believe it is.
Yeah, Mark Coward.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know
I don't
him.
think he has that actual prosthetic. I think he's working off photographs.
Right. He's got a photograph of the prosthetic, and he's matching this to some injuries on the children.
I think Dan Stidham, now he was one of the attorneys for the defense, but I think he has that partial and some pocket knives of mine, and I've asked for them back, and they won't get them back.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
How do you deal with I used to be a member of that group. They let me in, because they know that I do a lot of shows about the topic. So they let me in there, but they kicked me out. Jolene had me kicked out there. Ultimately, finally, they had enough of my input. So they kicked me out, but I did observe what went on in there. And believe me, it's more than disturbing. How do you deal with all this kind of negative attention and stuff you get? What do you do?
Well, as far as social media attention, I don't deal with it because I don't pay it no attention. I know that they'll say and come up with just about anything they can, and which all means nothing to me, and I just ignore it. I'm not a member of these groups, so I don't know what's said about me.
What's been the reaction now that people know you have a book coming out?
Well, there's a lot of people say that they can't wait.
Okay. And is there anything covered in the book that I haven't asked you about?
Anything in the book that you haven't asked?
Yeah, that I haven't thought to ask you that's covered in the book.
Well, I'm not going to tell you.
Yes, there are other things in the book that you haven't asked about. So people can still read it and get some new information.
Let me ask you a question. Terry, have you read the book?
I have.
You have? Because, there's several books written about me as well, too. And I've never really read any of them. I've read parts of them, but I've never really read any of them. I've never gotten around to it, A couple of them I've never even purchased. So one of them, a guy wrote a book I didn't even know. He's asked me in his book. I had no idea. So, it's not uncommon, I think, to have a book written about you and really not read it. Have you read the book?
I have read it. Actually, read it last week, first time.
Okay. And have you told Vicky how you like it?
I have. And actually, I told her, it's put together well, and she's put some time and dedication into this.
How about when the movie came out, The Devil's Knot movie? How'd you react to that? Because that had to be a blow. It has to really hurt to go sit there in a movie theater and see this crap about yourself.
Well, I didn't go watch it. We bought a video of it, CD of it, and watched it at home. And I'm just thinking, this is lame. No wonder it flopped. It wasn't
I
done
haven't
right.
seen it yet.
I have it. This wasn't right.
Yeah, I watched it. I didn't pay for it. I got it down on one of those downloading streaming websites because I refuse to put money in these people's pockets. I really do on these kind of things. But when you watch this and you see them talking about yourself, how does that feel?
I know it would have been a better thing if they would have asked me some things, but they didn't. And therefore they just get out there and just make up and say and do. I like the fact that my new Hollywood wife was Reese.
Yeah.
But as far as the movie, I would have given it a half a star rating.
Yeah.
Poor.
Did Mara Leverett ever?
You know how at the end of Sorry, you know how at the end of movies I say based on true stories, they'll give all these facts at the end of it.
Yeah.
With some update, they actually quote facts that aren't true. For instance, they said that the softball girls recanted, and that never happened. And they mentioned several true facts at the end of the story that are just pure fabrication.
You know, if you ever go and actually read those police reports of the whole incident with the softball girls, it's way more involved than it ever comes out in any of these documentaries or anything, or even online discussions. This was a big incident there at the softball field. People were changing their seats and moving away from these kids. This wasn't like some little girls overhearing something. And then first Damien claims that he never said it. Then he says, well, if I said it, it was a joke. So he's changed his story about the version of what he's the one who's recanting and changing his story. No one else that I know of. But if you ever read those police reports, this was a big incident at this softball park. Where there was a big disturbance there, where people were moving away from these characters. So that's a whole thing for people to look into as well. What about Pam? Pam's life is turned out kind of tragic as well, right? Do you get into that in your book?
I mean.
Yeah, go ahead.
Minorly, we couldn't really write about her. She didn't agree to talk to us. So what is in there about her is strictly from the perspective of when she was with Terry.
Okay, nothing more current about her troubles she says having more currently?
Not anything in any detail, no.
Okay. And Terry, did Mara Leverett ever contact you about the content of the book, or the producers of the movie that came out? Did they ever talk to you about your information?
Well, not that I'm aware of.
Really?
She's contacted me multiple times, asking me if the book was still coming out, right up until The Devil's Knot movie was published, and since then, she hadn't contacted me about it at all.
And what kind of questions was she asking you?
She asked me if it was still coming out, if I was still working on it. I actually had met Mara in relation to another case previously, so I've met her several times when she was in town. But the main thing she asked me was just, am I still doing it? When is it coming out? Have I been talking to Terry about it? Just really generic, trying to get, I guess, if it was coming out close to the time of her movie, is my guess.
And what was the other story? The Boys on the Tracks?
No. My husband's mother was murdered in 1976, and she was a deputy sheriff, allegedly murdered by a Hot Springs police officer. And Mara did a really long story in the Arkansas Times with it and worked with my husband on it for some time. It's in the works for a documentary right now, and we're hoping that pans out.
Okay, great.
So I knew her from that.
Well, we're running out of time. So, Vicky Edwards, what do you want to leave us with?
Well, buy the book, and if you're interested in my husband's mother's case, it was at lindaedwards.com. You can look that up. But go to terryhobbs.com, follow it. You can follow me on Twitter at SVEdwards, and I put book updates there pretty often. It'll be available sometime in April. And at this point, I know you can get it on Amazon, and the other methods of purchasing are still in negotiation.
Okay, great. And don't forget Arts in the Park, May 1st. And that's lindaedwards.com. Linda also has a website. And the book will also it'll be up on the Opperman Report bookstore. So you can just go there and you can make your Amazon purchase through there. And Terry, my friend, my first guest I've ever had on the show, and up until today, my last guest, right? So what do you want to leave us with, Mr. Hobbs?
Buy the book and read it and pay attention to the story. Learn some things that'll help you get through life.
Terry Hobbs, thank you so much, man. God bless you. You are an inspiration. I know you've had a rough life, and every now and then, we get our chance to chat on Facebook and back, and then you always are a kind man, very, very polite man, and very respectful. And I do appreciate your friendship and coming on the show for me.
Thank you.
Okay, so there you had Terry Hobbs and Vicky Edwards. And like I said, Terry Hobbs was actually on my first broadcast that I ever did. And we had a lot of audio problems on that show. And it got an enormous, hits and plays and views on YouTube and Spreaker and iHeart everywhere, man. But the audio is just horrible. And so everybody always says, oh, Terry Hobbs couldn't answer the tough questions. I think, even now I'm friends with Terry Hobbs. I like him. And I think I asked him some tough questions just now, and he has no problem answering anything, really. So there we got Terry Hobbs, a box full of nightmares. But I should have warned her before the show. That's LindaEdwards.com, not Vicky Edwards. I've been calling her Vicky Edwards. Is she Linda Edwards? I've been calling her Vicky Edwards. No, she's Vicky Edwards. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. Because she just sent me a little note on Facebook there. But a lot of I forget what I was going to say. Whatever. I'm a little distracted there for you, man. Let me read a little commercial break for you, and then we'll get back. Let me see. 21 Financial. 903-265-8563. 21 Financial provides unparalleled, personalized accounting services to a broad range of clients across New York and Houston, Texas. From now until April 14th, their sole focus is getting taxpayers the biggest refund possible on the money they earned. They're now mobile. You can't go to them, they'll go to you. They have a fleet of accounting Uber vehicles to travel back and forth to you, with the capability to file in any state across the United States. You can find them on Facebook and book your appointment directly, 21 Financial. Or you can call 903-265-8563 and talk to the beautiful Emily. What a doll. She's great. And ask for a free estimate on how they can double your refund. They also offer advance. They can advance you up to $6,000, man, on your tax refund. So they're going to get you a big tax refund and then advance you to cash. You can take that money, fly to Vegas, have a good time. Thank you so much, Terry Hobbs, man. TerryHobbs.com and Vicky Edwards. The website's LindaEdwards.com. A little threw me a curveball there. And the book is called Box Full of Nightmares.